Polysecure, Attachment, Trauma, and Consensual Non-Monogamy, written by Jessica Fern, read by Naomi Kirst-Schultz. We are on Chapter 6, Part 2, The Importance of Attachment. The partners who are receiving less time and attention will usually begin to feel uneasy, anxious, or angry, and they will begin to protest. As they begin to voice their dissatisfaction that their partner is being less available, present, or connected than the partner used to be, they may be told they are too jealous or needy. But their protest can actually be a healthy sign of their attachment system detecting too much disconnection, and therefore acting up in order to course correct. It's the body's inner guidance system indicating that important needs are going unmet. The insecurities arising for the partner who feels left out, left behind, or no longer as important are not necessarily manifestations of jealousy. Rather, the situation and the relationship they find themselves in are no longer providing them with the same degree of attachment-based needs fulfillment that they have been accustomed to, triggering a more hyperactivated, anxious, preoccupied style. In such cases, sometimes just the awareness of what is going on can be enough for the partner who has been less attentive to re-engage. Other times, strategies for being less polysaturated and more present with each partner need to be implemented, or sometimes renegotiations about the level of involvement or commitment of the relationship are needed. Similarly, the conditions that contribute to a disorganized attachment pattern can also arise in non-monogamous relationships. In situations where non-monogamy is not done ethically, where people are subject to vetoes or to decisions and boundaries that they did not co-create, and when relationship agreements or safe sex practices are being repeatedly broken, a person's safety and security alarm bells can go off in ways that become highly dysregulating and damaging. In any relationship, whether monogamous or non-monogamous, abuse, neglect, aggression, violence, manipulation, control, or gaslighting can also contribute to a fearful, avoidant attachment experience, where the one you love and trust is also the one you fear and shouldn't really trust. The conditions that breed a disorganized attachment adaptation are not specific to CNM by any means, but I have seen a variation that is unique to CNM. There can be something very disorienting that happens for some new CNM couples who were first monogamous together and were accustomed to being each other's main source of comfort, support, and relief from distress. As the relationship opens, a partner's actions with other people, even ethical ones that were agreed upon, can become a source of distress and pose an emotional threat. Everything that this person is doing with other people can become a source of intense fear and insecurity for their pre-existing partner, catapulting them into the paradoxical, disorganized dilemma of wanting comfort and safety from the very same person who is triggering their threat response. Again, the partner may be doing exactly what the couple consented to and acting within their negotiated agreements, but for the pre-existing partner, their primary attachment figure being away, unavailable, and potentially sharing levels of intimacy with another person registers as a debilitating threat in the nervous system. As someone in this situation simultaneously wants to move towards and away from one's partner, the very foundation of their relationship and attachment system can begin to shudder, and people can begin acting out in ways that are destructive to each other and the relationship. When this happens, I recommend working with a professional to reestablish inner and outer safety. CNM can activate the attachment system into primal panic. From the perspective of attachment theory, we need to be connected to people to survive, so our nervous system equates emotional connection with safety and emotional disconnection with danger or threat. Attachment-related threats include the potential loss of our attachment figure, separation from our attachment figure, or loss of access to them for periods of time longer than we are used to. These threats don't have to be actual to activate the attachment system, Even theoretical or symbolic threats can initiate attachment distress and what is called primal panic. As Sue Johnson states, quote, "Separation distress arises when an attachment bond is threatened or a secure connection is lost. There are other kinds of emotional bonds based on shared activities or respect, and when they are broken, a person may be distressed. But that distress does not have the same intensity or significance as when an attachment bond is called into question. Emotional and physical isolation from attachment figures is inherently traumatizing for human beings, beginning with it as a heightened sense not simply of vulnerability and danger, but also helplessness." Unquote. Many of my clients report being highly anxious and off their emotional axis for hours, sometimes even days before their partner goes on a date with someone else. Others seriously spiral out while the date is happening. Cognitively, they know that their partner is still alive, not abandoning them or doing anything wrong, but their body and emotions are in primal panic. In such cases, jealousy is not a sufficient or accurate description of what is happening for the partner in distress. When primal attachment panic gets mislabeled as jealousy, the partner experiencing it can be left thinking that there is something wrong with them, that this is their issue to figure out on their own, and that they should be better at doing CNM. They might use self-destructive behaviors, such as using distractions or substances in an attempt to feel better, but the root of the problem is left unaddressed. This can also escalate into panic attacks, meltdowns, or an emotional crisis that can pit partners against each other or become extremely difficult for everyone involved to manage. However, when people are able to identify this experience as primal panic, understand how it is rooted in their attachment needs, learn how to better self-soothe and address these attachment needs with their partner, a new path forward opens up together. There can be a mismatch of attachment expectations. As mentioned earlier, not all relationships have to be attachment-based, but ideally all parties involved in the relationship need to agree about this. Very painful and confusing situations can arise when one person wants a certain relationship to meet their attachment needs, but the other person does not want the same level of involvement. Or if a person wants an attachment-based relationship in theory, but is practically or situationally unable to emotionally provide at that level. When I see clients struggling with attachment anxiety because a partner gives mixed signals or is inconsistent in their responsiveness, support, or availability, it is important to explore whether or not they are expecting this partner to be an attachment figure for them. If they are, then it is paramount for them to dialogue with their partner about whether or not that partner wants to be in the role of an attachment figure for them, as well as honestly assessing if the partner has enough time, capacity, and/or space in their life and other relationships to show up to the degree required for being polysecure together. Some people prefer not to define their relationships, preferring to explore and experience them without labels or traditional expectations. As long as this level of ambiguity or relationship fluidity is a match for everyone involved, it can be a very liberating and satisfying way to relate with others. But when someone casts a partner in the role of attachment figure, but that person is unable or unwilling to play the part, much pain, frustration, disappointment, heartache, and attachment anxiety ensues. In monogamy, if two people do not align in their desires to be attached at a secure level, or one person is unable or unwilling to step into secure functioning, then the relationship usually ends, or they just suffer miserably together forever. But when this occurs in non-monogamy, the relationship might also end, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Non-monogamous relationships allow for more flexibility and negotiation about how close, connected, and involved partners want to be. I've seen that once people get clear with each other about whether or not they are pursuing an attachment-based relationship, each person can better orient to what the relationship is, what it isn't, what's available and what's not available, enabling people to better accept and appreciate the relationship for what it is without having to let it go. If the relationship is not going to be attachment-based, this doesn't mean that someone no longer needs to have their attachment needs met in general, but the acceptance that a specific relationship is not going to meet a person's attachment needs can relieve everyone involved and be an important step in finding or creating relationships with others. Potential signs that your attachment needs are not being considered in your CNM relationship. Your partner is inconsistently there for when you need them. Your partner ignores your texts, emails, or calls, or inconsistently responds to your texts, emails, or calls. Your partner ignores your explicit requests for time together, or they keep saying that they want to do things with you, but there's little to no follow-through. Your partner does things that make you question if you are accepted, appreciated, or valued. Your partner is inconsistent about the information they share about themselves, other partners, or sexual activity. Relationship and/or sexual agreements are being broken. Your partner uses their other partners as an excuse for their own behavior. Your partner uses criticism, defensiveness, contempt, or stonewalling. Your feelings, needs, or opinions are not heard or don't carry much weight. Despite what your partner says about how much they care about you or how they don't practice hierarchy, other partners are getting preferential treatment. Your partner is effusively affectionate over text, but uncomfortable with verbal or physical affection in person. You are giving more than you are receiving. You are being asked to keep your relationship a secret or lie about your relationship in front of certain people. You get more information from your metamors pertaining to important things about your partner than from your actual partner. CNM can create new attachment ruptures. As people transition into the non-monogamous relationship paradigm, they are required to lay down privileges as well as the relational map of monogamy. Now, walking around in a world that does not yet fully understand, respect, or approve of them, these people are left to figure out how to ethically have multiple lovers without a clear guidebook to follow. The loss of monogamy's privileges and absence of the clear-cut path that it offers on how to navigate relationships can create new attachment ruptures and traumas, both anticipated and unanticipated. These ruptures can occur over the multiple dimensions of human experience that are presented in the nested model of attachment and trauma. The following section offers the different ways in which people can experience stress, trauma, and attachment ruptures when they are practicing non-monogamy. Some of these experiences are subtler, where difficulty and pain result from an accumulation of stressful experiences within the various levels, and other experiences are more overtly oppressive, traumatic, or damaging of attachment. The examples that I share here are based on my own personal and professional experiences with CNM, insights from other mental health professionals specializing in non-monogamous relationships, and Elizabeth Sheff's years of research on people in polyamorous relationships and families. In Sheff's own words, quote, "Discrimination is hurtful action taken against an identifiable minority group, and anti-poly discrimination takes many different forms. Using data from my 20-year study of polyamorous families with children, I compiled some of the ways in which polyamorous people report experiencing discrimination. It is important to note that many of the people in the research reported positive experiences with polyamory, from family members who fully embraced them, their partners and metamors, to friends who welcomed the new chosen family members, and employers who invited the entire polycule to the employee holiday dinner. People living in urban areas, especially in liberal states, reported less discrimination than people living in conservative and/or rural regions. Most respondents were middle-class white people and did not mention racial or class discrimination, though respondents of color did mention concern for polyamory to complicate their already challenging interactions with racism." Unquote. I have seen firsthand the many ways that being non-monogamous can facilitate positive experiences with the friends, family, and work, as well as how many new and unexpected positive experiences people have with partners, metamors, and the new friends and family that come about from being non-monogamous. That said, I've yet to meet someone who is openly non-monogamous who has not experienced some form of judgment, criticism, rejection, discrimination, or othering because of their lifestyle or orientation. Experiences can vary greatly in terms of severity and impact, and the intersectionality of being polyamorous with other forms of marginalization cannot be ignored or minimized. The nested model of attachment and trauma offers a framework to name some of these differences and how they have an effect at each of the different levels. The nested model of attachment and trauma applied to people practicing consensual non-monogamy. Self-level. People who wake up to themselves as being non-monogamous as an orientation can have a similar coming out process to people who come out as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. Even though the realization that someone is non-monogamous by orientation may come with much personal clarity, relief, and alignment of who and how they are, the coming out process can also bring with it an enormous amount of pain and confusion. Deconstructing monogamy, whether you identify as non-monogamous by orientation or as a lifestyle choice, is not an easy undoing process for everyone. As people recognize the ways that monoromantic beliefs have been internalized into their psyche, as well as how these ideas have influenced their actions and choices, regret and shame can arise. The experience can cause a person to question their own identity, uncertain about which elements still fit and which do not, uncertain as to exactly what authenticity and integrity look like for them now. Unable to rely on a sense of self for internal safety and security, these people can be left on shaky ground, often without sufficient support to navigate what can become a crisis of identity, a dark night of the soul, or a complete reinvention of the self. Relationship level. At the relationship level, trauma and attachment ruptures can arise from your marriage or relationship disintegrating because you identify as non-monogamous, you and your partner transitioning together to CNM, which you are happy about, but experiencing a real loss of the old relationship that you two had together. Even though you might still be together, the relationship has changed, and it's common to have grief about the past relationship with your partner that is no longer, as well as grief and loss about the monogamous future you had envisioned with them. Loss, rejection, estrangement, or repeated judgment or criticism from friends and family members who you have come out to. Being treated differently by friends and family who no longer want you to be around or alone with their spouse or kids because you are non-monogamous. Being subjected to quote-unquote interventions from friends and family who are unaccepting of you being non-monogamous. Feeling unsafe and afraid to come out to certain friends or family members because it may end the relationship or risk your future safety or security in some way. The loss and stress that can occur from no longer being number one to your partner. Breakups or the death of CNM partners, which are just as painful and difficult as breakups or deaths of monogamous partners. Because you have other partners, your friends and family may not recognize or acknowledge the significance of the loss. Falling in love with someone who then ends the relationship with you, often suddenly, because their other partner told them to, or they decided to close up their relationship with their primary partner. The loss of metamor relationships when your partner and the metamor break up. Being unacknowledged, dismissed, stonewalled, or mistreated by metamors. Needing to break up with a partner because they choose to stay in a relationship with other people who abuse them, you, themselves, or others. Partners making a unilateral decision that changes the structure of your relationship without your consent. Being subjected to vetoes or power dynamics from partners and/or metamors. Not having a say or voice in what things you can do, places you can go, or sex acts you can experience with your partner because of rules and agreements that they have with someone else. One of your partners enters into a new relationship with someone and they get more attention, time, access, or social recognition than you do. Your spouse or primary partner has switched to non-hierarchical polyamory or relationship anarchy, but you still want to be primary partners, so you lose the primacy in your relationship that you want. No longer having your partner as your primary safe haven and the person you can tell everything to and process everything with. Having relationship agreements or safer sex agreements be broken that compromise your health and safety. And having to manage your partner's emotional roller coasters or hurts from the other relationships they are in. Home level. At the home level, trauma, discrimination, and attachment ruptures can arise from becoming a target from neighbors, housing associations, or landlords because of being non-monogamous. Evictions or denial of housing because you're non-monogamous. The inability to find housing with your partners because of laws that allow only a certain amount of unrelated people to cohabitate. Having to navigate and inhabit homes that are built for the married nuclear family. And dealing with child custody battles where your children are at risk of being taken out of the home because you are non-monogamous. Elizabeth Sheff's research has found that most of the child custody court cases that non-monogamous parents face are not initiated by the state or child protective services, but from ex-spouses or the child's grandparents who disapprove of the parent being non-monogamous. Culture and communities level. At the culture and communities level, trauma, discrimination, and attachment ruptures can arise from being rejected by social groups or communities that you were regularly involved with and previously accepted by. Being ostracized from a church that you belong to. Being subjected to interventions from teachers or community or religious leaders who are unaccepting of non-monogamy. Being unable to bring more than one partner to events, holidays, work functions, graduations, or weddings, either because of the potential negative consequences or because of the standard +1 policy of many formal occasions. Already being a part of a minority group that does not fully fit into more mainstream communities, and now having to experience even further community discrimination or isolation. Being blocked from online groups or being unfriended or unfollowed on social media because of being non-monogamous. Being an outcast at school because of being non-monogamous. Losing your job because you're non-monogamous. Losing your polycule or non-monogamous community because of drama or a breakup. Being unable to be out about being non-monogamous at work because it could put your job, respect, ranking, promotions, bonuses, clients, or social status at risk. Being a man, usually white and cisgender, who is facing not having certain privileges for the first time. When non-monogamous, the loss of monogamous privilege shows up in several of the different levels for everyone, but for men, it is usually first noticed in regards to dating, where men practicing CNM no longer have the same ease, accessibility, and favor when it comes to dating now that they are non-monogamous. The transition to CNM can become a significant eye-opener to privilege. While it is extremely important for men, especially white and/or cisgender men, to face the power dynamics that they have participated in and benefited from. The experience of going through a privilege flip can be disorienting, painful, and even traumatic. Men can also experience further ostracization when they are met with contention from non-monogamous communities because they still hold other forms of privilege, and when they experience a lack of support and guidance in how to make sense of the privileges they've lost and those they still hold. Being judged or scolded at the doctor's office for being non-monogamous. Being denied certain STI testing because the doctors or nurses are not aware or accepting of non-monogamy. Being given misinformation about sexual health and STIs from healthcare practitioners who have been trained from a mononormative perspective. Being denied access to partners who are in the hospital because you are not married. No longer seeing yourself in popular culture via songs, commercials, movies, television, news, etc. And not being able to find local, non-monogamous community to participate in. At the societal level, trauma, discrimination, and attachment ruptures can arise from people practicing consensual non-monogamy being a legally unprotected class in the US and most other countries, being unable to legally marry more than one partner, being unable to religiously marry more than one person. This is not true of all religions. Non-monogamy being considered adultery, which is illegal in certain states. In the military, non-monogamy can also be considered adultery, which can put someone's job, ranking, and veterans benefits at risk, or even lead to incarceration or being dishonorably discharged from the military. Discrimination or the loss of privileges based on the many ways that monogamy and marriage have been institutionalized through tax benefits, health insurance benefits, child rights, estate rights, social security benefits, immigration and citizenship rights, and veterans benefits. Global level. At the global level, trauma and attachment ruptures can arise from the collective traumas, deaths, and enslavement that the patriarchal, heteronormative, and mononormative monogamous paradigms have produced. The specific hardships that non-monogamous people face during a global emergency such as a pandemic. As I write this during the 2020 coronavirus pandemic, all of my clients, regardless of their relationship structure, are experiencing a maelstrom of fear, overwhelm, anxiety, and significant loss. This includes the loss of loved ones, work, home, community, touch, meaning, and purpose. However, my non-monogamous clients are facing additional challenges. Having multiple partners while being asked to practice social distancing and isolation means being separated from important, intimate partnerships for an extended period of time. Uncertainty around how long this will go on and concern about the levels of risk that may come with reuniting are also exacerbating their sense of loss, anxiety, and overwhelm. When someone is no longer a part of a dominant paradigm, trauma can arise from the experience of being separated from the group and the feeling that they are alone with no one to turn to. Additionally, some experiences specific to being non-monogamous can create additional and recurring threats that compromise our ability to attach, connect, or even function. However, there is much growth that can come from this hardship. Just as scar tissue is stronger than regular skin tissue, traumas can lead to what researchers and mental health professionals refer to as post-traumatic growth, where 30 to 70% of individuals who experienced trauma report positive changes arising out of the traumatic experience they went through. Psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun describe post-traumatic growth as occurring when, quote, someone's development has surpassed what was present before the struggle with crises occurred. The individual has not only survived but has experienced changes that are viewed as important and that go beyond the status quo, unquote. Such people have described profound changes in how they view their relationships, as well as how they conceive of themselves and their philosophy of life. Non-monogamy can be a pressure cooker for growth. It is commonly and playfully known in the non-monogamous world that you shouldn't enter CNM unless you are ready to process, communicate, grow, and then process, communicate, and grow some more. This is because having multiple partners will expose all of your relationship baggage, your blind spots, your shadows and shortcomings, and all the potential ways you've been asleep to social issues. Because of this, I've seen how non-monogamy can actually become an accelerated path to growth, specifically when it comes to attachment, where it offers a path to healing that many people would not experience otherwise. When people are able to heal their previous attachment wounds, address any attachment changes that have occurred since opening up, and create relationships that are founded on relational security instead of structural security, what previously felt impossible about consensual non-monogamy becomes possible, even celebratory. This has been Chapter 6, Part 2, The Importance of Attachment, from Polysecure, Attachment, Trauma, and Consensual Non-Monogamy, written by Jessica Fern, read by Naomi Kirst-Schultz. Thanks for reading with me.